WrestleMania could be headed to Saudi Arabia sometime very soon, as a Saudi official has officially made it clear that the country wants WrestleMania and WWE's other big events in the kingdom. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to provide a big update from Nick Khan as to WWE's current relationship with Saudi Arabia and the potential to expand that. All that, much more coming up in this video. So be sure to smash that like button like it's no tomorrow. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Let's roll up our sleeves and talk about the news. All right. So, as it's known, WWE and Saudi Arabia have had a multi-year partnership to bring shows into the kingdom and really help bolster Saudi Arabia's entertainment districts. They are trying to make Saudi Arabia one of the premier destinations for tourism, and a way of doing that is hosting these big events. You're going to see Saudi Arabia try to host a World Cup. You're going to see them try to host these big UFC events as they've done in the past, big boxing matches. And well, add WrestleMania to the list because Saudi Arabia wants to bring WrestleMania to the kingdom. Here is the word from a Saudi official. This is the chairman of the General Entertainment Authority for Saudi Arabia, Turki Al-Sheikh, who says that an enhancement to Saudi Arabia's existing agreement, with WWE will be announced later this month. Specifically, he is looking to bring January's annual Royal Rumble, or WWE's top event, WrestleMania, to Saudi Arabia. Here's the direct quote from Al-Sheikh himself, who says, "We will do big things with UFC and TKO." So there's obviously been talk of WWE expanding the Saudi partnerships. The meme has always been that eventually WWE was going to get a WrestleMania type event over to Saudi Arabia. And I think one thing is true, right? No matter what we want, and no matter what the fans desire, the truth of the matter is WWE will always do what is best for their bottom line. And I think part of what they want to do is to expand the reach of these events and expand the scope of them and expand the vibe of these events. WWE, as we've seen with the way that they have positioned the locations of various PLEs this year, they were in Australia. They were recently in France and they had a hot crowd. They are going to Germany. They're going to Scotland. These are not markets that traditionally get big-time wrestling pay-per-views, especially at the scale at which WWE is providing them. And the key factor here is twofold. Number one, WWE now is leaning into these markets because they know that these are untapped markets that are very lucrative for them. Look at this week's Backlash event that gained over $3 million at the gate. That is an insane number for WWE to get for any show. They are making millions upon millions of dollars from that show off of the Peacock deal. You counter that with the Prime partnership, you add in the concession, all the stuff that goes into it. This was a very profitable event, and you look back at other events where the local governments have actually had to pay WWE in order to get the events to come there. You go to Puerto Rico, you look at Cardiff 2 years ago at Clash at the Castle. I believe Glasgow recently had to do a very similar thing. WWE is going where the money is. And there is no question in my mind that eventually one day Saudi Arabia will give WWE an absolutely insane amount of money to bring not only Royal Rumble, but WrestleMania to Saudi Arabia. I think it is going to happen. Within the next 5 or 6 years, we will see, I think by WrestleMania 45, we will at least have an announcement for a Saudi show. It could even come later this month when WWE expands their partnership, as was said to us by the executive right there, the Saudi official, right there. So I think it's going to happen. And again, it's money. It's the fact that they have such a great partnership, and Nick Khan even spoke to this partnership recently on the Q1 investor call. What I would say there, let's remember, we have a strong and healthy relationship with the kingdom through WWE and is doing 2 annual events a year. And I'll just remind folks, those deals were primarily and highly tied to Vince McMahon. And there were a lot of speculation with Vince being gone. Would that impact the relationship in a negative way? Would they be looking to get out of it? And I would say proudly that Nick Khan in particular has developed and sustained and cultivated and nurtured a very, very strong relationship in a handoff from Vince McMahon. Nick Khan and Saudi Arabia, have a lot of trust in each other. They have a lot of faith. They have been delivering on those events. Potentially, we could look to do more events, but nothing is planned beyond those 2 events at this time. And we will continue to look at eventizing or festivalizing those WWE events more than we already do. So obviously there's an explicit, messaging there, and there's an explicit point there that WWE is trying to make, that their partnership with Saudi Arabia is stronger than ever. And there is no reason to believe that that isn't true. They are about to go and do King and Queen of the Ring over there. They're probably slated to do another show in the kingdom at some point later this year. And you look at the money and you look at what Saudi Arabia is trying to do. They are trying to make Saudi Arabia, again, a destination, a tourism hub. They want to be another Dubai, essentially. And part of that is getting things like the World Cup, getting things like WrestleMania. And for WWE, people want to say, I think the counter is always going to be, people want to travel for WWE. They want to travel for WrestleMania. That's the whole point of WrestleMania, to get a big crowd, to make sure people are able to travel. And, people usually expect these Saudi shows to be, people who aren't into wrestling or whatever. I think that's going to change, because the amount of money that Saudi Arabia has invested in trying to make these places hubs for entertainment, hubs for tourism, is a lot, and they are welcoming tourism. Now, there's a few different factors to take in here. Obviously, there are cultural things that Saudi Arabia does not do, like drinking is forbidden in the kingdom, although I think they have special exemptions in some cases. Although, as we saw in Qatar in the World Cup, those exemptions only lasted for so long, and then that's a bit of a minutia point, though. I think that for WWE, they are looking at it from twofold. Number one, they know for a fact that they're going to get a boatload of money from Saudi Arabia. Number two, more importantly, they want WrestleMania to be this massive event on a scale that's like no other. And one thing that is true about these Saudi shows, I don't personally watch them for my own reasons, but one thing that is 100% true is that Saudi Arabia puts on shows that are to the scale of a WrestleMania as far as the presentation. The cards might not be there, but the presentation is big time, and there's no doubt that I think they're going to be able to help pull that off, and I think they're going to be able to get a large contingent of fans who are going to travel. That's just the truth. As the infrastructure continues to build, that will happen. And then you also look at the ability for WWE to, present a more global view of WrestleMania. I think WrestleMania is going to become a global event, and that's what WWE wants to do. I think you're going to get to a point where every 2 or 3 years, WrestleMania is international. I think London will get a WrestleMania at some point. I think that Saudi Arabia will get a WrestleMania. I think Germany will get a WrestleMania. I think all of these big hubs of professional wrestling, these big hubs and markets that WWE knows are there for the taking, they are going to do everything in their power to try to get these big events there. Now, there's also a very important point that I haven't mentioned up until this point that kind of is important to talk about, and that is the sports watching aspect. The biggest critique of the Saudi Arabia and WWE partnership, the biggest critique of the Saudi WWE partnership, I should say, is that this is an obvious, in part, an obvious attempt by Saudi Arabia to use sports, to use entertainment, to use tourism, to try to paint a picture of the kingdom, which it fundamentally isn't, if we're being honest. The Saudi Arabian government is one that is highly oppressive. The Crown Prince himself was involved in the murder and dismemberment of a critical journalist on Turkish grounds. That caused a whole lot of backlash. That caused even WWE to bear the brunt of that, as Stephanie McMahon was quoted just recently afterwards that dismemberment was, harmful to, stocks or something along the effect. To use that, and it is a horrible line to use. And WWE got a lot of negative PR for it. There were several talents like John Cena, Sami Zayn, Kevin, people who were not on those shows for various reasons. And people many times did not want to be on those shows. There was the incident where there was some sort of miscommunication between WWE and the Saudi government, and their plane of wrestlers was not allowed to take off and stopped on the tarmac for hours. I think that while the partnership is strong, and while I think Saudi Arabia is trying to normalize its view in the world and the opinions people have of them, it does not change the day-to-day life in Saudi Arabia. It does not change the oppression in Saudi Arabia. It does not change a damn thing about the horrific nature where they're treating journalists and the way they're treating activists and the way they're treating common people. And I think it's important to note that. It's personally, and also I'm a Muslim, and I in part resent certain aspects of the way that this is all portrayed, and as it comes to my religion. So I think that there's a lot of different factors to take into account here. That being said, I think from a business standpoint, as I said earlier, expect WrestleMania to be in Saudi Arabia sooner rather than later. Who knows? Maybe we'll get the announcement at some point later this month. Let me know what you guys think about this. Should WrestleMania be going international? Should they be going to Saudi Arabia? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, be sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released.